Good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday, June 9th, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Kim Mo-gen. Before we begin, these are the stories we're following at the top of the hour. The U.S. State Department has announced eased travel guidelines for more than 100 countries, including South Korea, which has dropped to the lowest tier. South Korea reported 602 new COVID-19 cases Wednesday, creeping back above the 600 mark. As the nation continues with its vaccination program, the government gave the green light for tour groups of fully vaccinated people to travel overseas as early as July. And South Korea's economy grew slightly faster at 1.7% in the first quarter, thanks to robust recovery of exports and facility investment. The nation also reported job growth for the third straight month in May. Our top story this morning, the U.S. State Department has announced eased travel guidelines for more than 100 countries. And South Korea has been placed in the lowest tier, meaning that the country has been deemed safe to travel amid the pandemic. Chang Tae-hyun has our top story.
The U.S. Department of State has eased travel recommendations for more than 110 countries and territories. The newly revised travel alerts announced on Tuesday reflect a recent policy update, but not all ratings were updated due to reasons like commercial flight availability and restrictions on the entry of U.S. citizens. 61 countries have been lowered from the highest Level 4 rating that discourages all travel to Level 3, including Japan, Italy, Canada, and Mexico. On May 24, the U.S. had urged against travel to Japan due to a rising wave of coronavirus infections. Restrictions are being eased ahead of the Tokyo Olympics set to begin next month. These changes follow a revision to criteria for travel health notices. Guidelines for Level 4 countries have changed from 100 COVID-19 cases per 100,000 people to 500 cases per 100,000. Another 50 countries and territories have been lowered to Level 2 or Level 1. Countries ranked lowest for COVID-19 risks include South Korea, Israel, and Singapore. This means that it's a country deemed safe to travel amid the pandemic. The travel advisory on South Korea went down to Level 1 after more than 6 months at Level 2. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's decision to lower the travel warning comes as many parts of the world are ramping up vaccinations and bouncing back from the pandemic. Chang Tae-hyun, Arirang News.
South Korea reported 602 new COVID-19 cases Wednesday, climbing back above the 600 mark for the first time in 4 days. Of the new cases, all but 21 were locally transmitted, and 2 more people have died of the virus, raising the death toll to 1,977. The total number of cases now stands at over 145,000. As for vaccinations, more than 2.3 million people have been fully vaccinated as of this morning, and authorities are urging the public to get vaccinated and are giving the green light for those who've been fully vaccinated to travel overseas in group tours without quarantine as early as July. A growing number of people are using aromatic stickers when putting on face masks, but it turns out most of these products have not been tested for safety. Our Kim Jae-hee delves deeper into this issue.
Wearing a mask for a long period of time can be uncomfortable and frustrating, but it's even worse if it's coupled with a bad smell. A little accessory is quickly rising as a solution in South Korea: scented stickers for masks.
Simply placing the sticker on the outside of your mask can instantly create a natural, refreshing scent that effectively gets rid of odors.
With their popularity growing by the day, an increasing number of startups are jumping into this mask patch business. But while air fresheners or deodorants are required to get tested for their safety before they can be sold, it turns out most of the mask stickers on the market have not been approved.
Mask patches can be seen as air freshener for face masks. Therefore, the product should be sold only after its chemical substances have been tested and their safety confirmed. But when we checked 49 mask patches being sold online, none of them had undergone such tests.
The Korea Consumer Agency has advised the immediate removal of the 49 products from the market. But the majority of the sticker manufacturers have said they will continue selling their product by changing the use of their product to general use on fabric rather than on masks. Only 11 replied that they would stop manufacturing, and 8 have not yet given a response. Only one manufacturer agreed to get its product tested for safety. The Korea Consumer Agency warns that even the stickers that are on sale as air fresheners for general use should not be attached to masks or near the nose or mouth. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
South Korea's economy grew faster than expected in the first quarter of this year. According to the Bank of Korea on Wednesday, the country's GDP climbed 1.7% in the January to March period, 0.1 percentage point higher than the bank's earlier estimate. The central bank attributed the growth to a robust recovery in facility investment and exports, which rose 6.1% and 2% respectively. The BOK last month revised up its economic growth outlook for this year to 4% from its previous 3%. The number of people employed in South Korea rose on year for the third straight month in May, showing that the job market is recovering from the pandemic. According to Statistics Korea on Wednesday, over 27.5 million people were employed in May, up roughly 619,000 compared to a year earlier. Job numbers have been on the rise since March this year after 12 consecutive months of on-year decline. The employment rate for those aged 15 and older in May grew 1 percentage point on year to 61.2%, and the unemployment rate fell 0.5 percentage point to 4%. Statistics Korea attributed the rebound to robust exports, a rise in consumption, and steady social distancing measures. The Biden administration is forming a task force to address bottlenecks in fields like semiconductors and construction. Watchers say the move indicates Washington's desire to reduce its dependence on China. Yoo Sang-chul reports.
In a 250-page report released Tuesday, the Biden administration announced it was forming a task force led by the U.S. Trade Representative to address the bottlenecks in the semiconductor, construction, transportation, and agriculture sectors. According to officials, the goal is to increase domestic manufacturing, limit shortages of vital goods, while reducing dependence on geopolitical competitors, namely China. With words China and Chinese used 458 and 108 times respectively in the report, Washington is clear on who it's competing against. Senior Biden administration officials also say the task force will look into specific violations that have contributed to a hollowing out of supply chains that could be addressed with trade remedies, including those towards China. It's part of a broader Biden administration plan to shore up U.S. competitiveness in the face of multiple economic challenges posed by its biggest economic rival. But with South Korea being mentioned over 70 times in the report, the U.S. is looking to its allies to boost its supply chains elsewhere. President Biden ordered the review in February, requiring executive agencies to report back within 100 days on risks to U.S. access to critical goods, such as rare earth materials, for which the U.S. is dependent on overseas sources. Yoo Sang-chul, Arirang News.
Major websites like Amazon, PayPal, Spotify, and CNN are working again after being offline for up to an hour. A massive internet outage occurred Tuesday U.S. time due to technical issues related to the cloud computing service Fastly. It's one of the world's most widely used providers. It said there was an issue that caused some of its high-traffic websites to go offline, but it has now been fixed. The affected websites are also back up and running. In the meantime, New York City's law department computer system remained down for a second day on Tuesday after investigators discovered it had been hacked. The FBI is looking into the ransomware incident and the motive. The Biden administration's top diplomat says the U.S. will work to arrange reunions of Korean Americans with their long-lost family members in North Korea. The goal is to have them take place as quickly as possible. Kim Da-mi reports.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has pledged full efforts to help realize the long-awaited reunions of Korean Americans with their loved ones in North Korea. Blinken showed such support in a hearing on Monday when asked for efforts on the matter by U.S. Congresswoman Grace Meng, who proposed the Divided Families Reunification Act in February. Calling the issue heart-wrenching, Blinken said Washington will work with Seoul to make sure that the interests of Korean Americans who have been separated from their families are reflected in the U.S. efforts. Currently, as many as 100,000 Americans of Korean descent are believed to have family members living in the North. The two Koreas have held some 20 family reunions between their separated families, but no reunions for those in the U.S. have taken place. Seoul's Unification Ministry on Tuesday vowed to work on the family reunions for Korean Americans as soon as the opportunity presents itself after the resumption of inter-Korean talks. The U.S. State Department last week also showed support for Seoul's recent decision to build more video reunion centers for families separated by the Korean War.
We believe the expansion of the number of video reunion centers is necessary so that we can use them immediately when inter-Korean relations improve.
For its plan to establish 7 more of those centers nationwide, Seoul's Unification Ministry will spend over $1 million. 김다미, Arirang News.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Tuesday local time that hundreds of sanctions on Iran will remain even if the U.S. rejoins the nuclear accord. The Biden administration has been engaged in indirect talks with Iran about reversing Trump's exit from the 2015 nuclear deal. Speaking of the sanctions, Blinken told a Senate committee that if they are not inconsistent with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, they will remain unless and until Iran's behavior changes. The U.S. is ready to end some of the sweeping measures imposed by Trump, although Iran is insisting on the removal of all sanctions. The IOC is redistributing slots at the Tokyo Olympics held by North Korea, finalizing the North's absence. The move follows the regime's announcement in April that it would not send its athletes to Japan due to the pandemic. It's the first time North Korea has missed a Summer Olympics since it boycotted the 1988 Seoul Games. Meanwhile, the IOC says 29 athletes from 12 sports will form an Olympic refugee team. The squad features athletes from 11 countries, including Afghanistan, Syria, and Venezuela. A key member of South Korea's 2002 World Cup team that enjoyed a historic run to the semifinals died on Monday after a long battle with cancer. Our Han Sung-woo takes a look back at the life of Yoo Sang-chul.
South Korean football legend and 2002 World Cup hero Yoo Sang-chul died of pancreatic cancer on Monday evening at the age of 49. The former midfielder was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in October 2019 during his tenure as head coach of K-League side Incheon United. Here at his funeral at Asan Medical Center in Seoul, some of the country's best-known football figures showed up to pay their respects and bid Yoo a last farewell.
He was somebody who worked very hard to lead his young juniors by example. It breaks my heart to hear such sad news.
Tributes have also poured in from across the globe. On Twitter, FIFA called Yoo a World Cup hero who served a vital role in South Korea reaching the 2002 semifinals under Gus Hiddink.
Whether it be as a forward, a midfielder, or a defender, Yoo always produced. He was a jack of all trades who greatly helped South Korean football.
Head of the Korea Football Association, Chung Mong-yu, lamented the recurrence of Yoo's cancer as it seemed like he was relatively healthy early last year, making some public appearances and even approaching Incheon about a coaching return. A versatile player who enjoyed successful club stints in both Korea and Japan, as well as playing over 100 times for his country, Yoo is best remembered for scoring the second goal against Poland in his nation's first ever World Cup victory. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
Ocean waste threatens the livelihoods of fishermen here in South Korea. But it's not just plastic straws and bottles, but discarded fishing nets, ropes, and buoys are also causing a big problem. Kim Yeon-sing has the story.
The beautiful coastline of Incheon's islands, littered with trash. According to a study from Nature Geoscience in 2018, the beach sediments along the coast of Incheon and Gyeonggi-do province have the second highest microplastic concentration in the world.
These mounds of trash all came from the ocean. The smell of rotten trash reeks, but fishermen say that this is just the tip of an iceberg.
Back in the early 80s, there was no trash at all, but now words can express how serious the problem is. From everyday trash to garbage dumped out by Chinese ships and local fishermen, there's much more trash in the sea than you would think.
Park Tae-won, a fisherman for 40 years on Yeonpyeong-do Island, says that just 20 years ago, fishing boats would catch up to 20 to 30 kilograms of fish a day. Now, fishermen count themselves lucky if they end up with a third of that. Rarely a day goes by without ocean waste getting caught up in the boat's propellers, and nets often come up with more trash than fish.
I've had days when waste got caught up in my propellers 5 times. If we hoist up our nets all day, about 60% will be fish, and the rest is garbage. Sometimes the 60 will be the trash.
The livelihoods of fishermen are at risk, but sometimes the victims are also the culprits.
There are 41 fishing methods in South Korea, and the length of fish nets used in just one of those methods, gill netting, can wrap around the earth 4 times. But the nets aren't properly managed, so the government estimates that in reality, about 3 times that amount is used.
According to the activists, 60 to 80% of waste from ocean activities is from fishermen's gear, like nets, ropes, and styrofoam buoys. When activists and fishermen try to alleviate the problem by bringing in the floating waste, they often find themselves drowning in the sea of trash. They say without stronger regulations against illegal nets, fishing boats, and dumping ocean waste, the problem will only grow by day. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News, Yeonpyeong-do Island.
Welcome. It's time for The World Now, bringing you some of the most interesting news from around the globe. I'm Ji-young. For those of you who are tuning in from Colorado, you might have witnessed a picturesque yet damaging tornado Monday afternoon touching down north of Denver. A landspout, which grows from the ground up, was first spotted, but it became a well-developed tornado as it slowly moved north. The twister traveled at least 5 miles and was visible for about 30 minutes. Local media said it could be seen from more than 25 miles away. At least 5 homes were damaged, but fortunately no injuries to people have been reported. Humans are not the only ones at risk from serious diseases. Sea lions in California are facing a surge in cases of cancer. Medical staff at the Marine Mammal Center are concerned as many of the creatures have been brought in with an untreatable diagnosis, urogenital carcinoma. This cancer is wreaking havoc on sea lions, and a study published in Frontiers in Marine Science in December says almost 25% of adult California sea lions end up suffering from the disease. The rate is the highest prevalence of cancer in any mammal, including humans. The medical director says it is linked to pollution.
It's not unusual for animals to develop cancer, but it's usually as individuals or possibly small numbers. But in California sea lions that have this urogenital carcinoma, we see unprecedented numbers, and the strong association with herpes virus and pollutants in the environment is a huge warning to us to pay attention to what's happening in the oceans.
Experts say the surge in cases could potentially be associated with the dumping of thousands of barrels of DDT, a banned insecticide, in the Pacific Ocean off the Southern California coast decades ago. Venice's historic buildings have long been threatened with collapse due to waves created by motorboats cruising along its canals. But a new high-tech boat could help save Venice from water erosion. It's a flying boat different from motorboats that damage building foundations that has been designed to make fewer waves. The boat also addresses environmental problems.
This is the Candela C7, the world's first electric hydrofoil boat, and that means that it flies above the water. So we developed this technology with the aim to reduce energy consumption drastically. So when flying, we use 80% less energy than any other powerboat.
The company is developing a water taxi and ferry as well. The company official said, "We all love Venice, and if we can help to save it, we should."
Good morning. An early heat wave is in the forecast today. Highs will go well above 30 degrees Celsius under sunny skies, while southern regions will be as hot as yesterday, while the regions along the east coast will have a breezy day today. And we also have very strong UV rays across much of the country, so be sure to drink plenty of water and try to limit outdoor activities during the hottest parts of the day, which is 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Meanwhile, parts of Jeju will see rain into the evening today, while mountainous regions in Gangwon-do province and parts of Jeollabuk-do province could see a passing rain during the day. So other than rain-affected areas, the rest of us will have high to very high ozone levels with highs in the low 30s. But actually, the air quality will be normal today. The early sweltering summer heat will be short-lived with rain in the forecast from tomorrow, which could linger into Friday. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that will do it for us at this hour on Arirang News. We'll be back at noon Korea time, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Three-finger salute.